Welcome to Dark Horse Matters, the show about people, their passions, and their pursuit toward happiness. I'm your host, Bev Matayoshi, and my passion is talking to people about their dreams and their driving forces in life. And the more I talk to people on this show, I realize that, when people are on the pursuit towards something that they're passionate about, they just have this powerful energy about them, and it's so amazing because all of them they just want to share, their experiences, their success stories, and, their struggles, and especially if it inspires others. So before I introduce my guest today, if you're just joining us, don't forget to like and subscribe. And, I just want to welcome you to the passionate community. And then, yep, hit the notification bell so you can be notified every single time uh, I have a new guest, a new video that I post. The person I invited today is another old friend of mine, who has inspired me for a couple of decades now. Gosh, I feel old saying that. But he still inspires me to this day, and I consider him the culture creator. He's the creator of culture. I've always felt that way about him. And, and, that's the subject that we're going to be talking about today is culture, the importance of it in life and whatever surrounding you're in, business or, whatever passionate, dream that you're pursuing. It's a very important phenomenon and concept. So please give a warm welcome to Bryce Watanabe.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Bryce.
I love the fact that you bust out all the bells and whistles for the for the
It's
intro.
my green tambourine.
Felt like I was walking out on stage. Yeah.
Hey,
It's like I'm on Jimmy Fallon.
yeah, you got to get creative on Zoom, man. Like the energy is just not the same as it is in person,
I
you
love it.
know.
Love it.
But thank you so much for coming on the show, Bryce. I really appreciate, just reconnecting with you. Uh, we've known each other, almost our whole lives.
For a
Gosh.
while now. I really appreciate what you said at the top, Bev. That means a lot to me. I never thought of myself that way, and to hear it come out of your mouth kind of validates a lot of what I do at work. So I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Oh, cool. I've always felt that way about you. You're like the person, when you walked into the room, it's like, okay, now the party can start.
Come
That's how.
on. I felt like I've always felt like you were kind of good at being that person that brings people together. So it's funny that you see me as that person because I kind of always saw you as that person.
Aw, thank you. Um, I just want to kind of go down memory lane a little bit because we've known each other for such a long time. I'm trying to think like, I think I indirectly met you in the seventh grade because you were in band with my twin sister, Kim. But I wasn't in band, so I didn't really know you directly. But we shared a lot of the same friends. But it wasn't until college that I actually really became friends with you. Is that how you remember it too?
Right? That's
And
pretty much how I remember. I always remember you guys being this like force. So whenever the Matayoshi sisters were involved in anything, whether or not it was a play or a conversation like down the hallway, there was always a buzz around there. So I always knew where you were and what you guys were doing when you were coming down the halls and stuff. But we never got a chance to really get to know each other until a little bit later when when we were in our college phase,
yeah, yeah.
having adventures together.
I do remember one incident though in high school, um, that I kind of had my first real one-on-one interaction with you. We were in the same English class, and we would always have breakfast, like in the cafeteria, and our English class was like all the way at the end of the campus. So usually, we were like borderline tardy, by the time we got there. I remember one day because our teacher would lock us out, and then after she
Yeah.
took attendance, she would let us in. And we got locked out, and it was a bunch of us. We're all sitting outside the class and, just kind of kicking it for a few minutes while she took attendance. And I just remember thinking, because I don't know, we were just talking about, I don't know, just, being bad, And I
Yeah,
was just like,
we were
but we're,
commiserating.
yeah, but we're also like so nerdy, So I was just like thinking in my head, he's a lot cooler, not as nerdy as I thought he was. You
Yeah,
know?
we were the nerdy, we were the bad kids out of the nerdy kids. That's the way I would describe where we were at in the totem pole. Definitely weren't with the popular crew. We were somewhere between. I'm pretty sure we were probably just shoved off to the side completely.
Yeah.
I My group of friends, we were very cliquish, and we realized this after high school ended. It's like, wow, there are so many cool people in high school that we went to school with that we kind of didn't even give a chance to get to know because we were so stuck in our own mindset of, yeah, man, nobody want, like we're the outcast kind of a mentality. So, but I specifically remember that day, Bev, because I believe I got into a car accident that morning, and I was so mad. I was so pissed off because I went into class to try to explain, and our teacher, I won't name names, was like, "Nope, out." So I was like, "Are you kidding me? I just got into an accident. You're gonna make me sit outside?" So I remember commiserating with you, and yeah,
We're,
basically just crap talking,
we're just being a bunch of rebels. I love it.
bunch of jerks. Yeah, but
Oh my God, that's so funny that we remember that day. It was just such
yeah.
a random day in high school out of all the other days.
And
But
then we got to know each other super good after that.
yes, yes. In college, like, because we moved to Los Angeles, and I during that period, I remember I dropped out. It was after one semester I dropped out of college at USC. And I just remember being super depressed, like, feeling like a total loser. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and you just happened to be in that, space in LA, and I just remember spending a lot of time with you and just enjoying the whole period of not doing anything. Like the fact that I had someone to, be there for me during that
Yep.
time when you're trying to find your identity, you have no
Yep.
idea who you are. And I just remember loving that time that we spent together, even if it was
Aw,
just like, you know what I mean? Like
I loved it
discovery,
too.
that
Yeah,
discovery
it was
period.
it was meant to be because I was going through the same thing. I think I don't know if I told you this whole piece, but when I went to UH, I didn't really want to go. I really wanted to go to art school, right? So I was pitching this to my parents, and my dad was super fair guy. He said, "Listen, this is what we're working with. So you can go to San Fran Academy of the Art College, but I can guarantee I have enough to pay for 1 year. And after that, I don't know. But here's the price of the University of Hawaii." And so he like showed me comparatively, and I could pretty much go to UH for all 4 years at the time. I think tuition was ridiculously low. It was like 1,600 or something super low like that. And for residents. And so I was like, I'll make the responsible decision. I'll stay in Hawaii. And then I really hated myself for that decision. I saw all of a lot of my friends like Carrie go away to school and, really having all these awesome, outstanding experiences that I was just like still in Hawaii. And when you went to UH that first year, it was kind of strange because if you saw anyone from Castle or anybody that you remotely recognized from, the before times, you kind of like gave them a hug. You saw them on campus, you ran over, it's like, "Hi, how are you doing? Are you surviving?" Right? Um, and so it was like being thrown into that uncomfortable college situation, but nothing new in terms of outside of campus. Everything else was you're just still in Hawaii, and everybody else is kind of. That's the way I felt. Everyone else is kind of like, off on their big adventures. So I dropped out too, and when I told my parents that, I remember them being very pissed off and concerned because they're both teachers, right? And then I went couch surfing in California. And yeah, meeting you at the time where we met was so good for me, like for my mental health, to have somebody else going through what I was going through. Because we were finding ourselves, and it was rocky and weird, but it was super fun, right? Like I
Yeah.
would not trade that for anything.
Yes. So much fun. And the music that we wrote, like I just remembered that period of my life. Like I just writing songs was so important to me. It was like my way of journaling what I was going through, and the fact that we got to write songs together, I just, I love that. I love that so much. I will always cherish that song we wrote together. One more quarter. It,
Yeah.
it, it just like it just like really speaks that time in Los Angeles that we spent together. So thank you, Bryce, for that experience. I
Oh,
will
thank
never
you.
forget.
I'll do a coffee cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers. So like growing up in Hawaii, and your parents are teachers. I know because they were my teachers. Your dad was. Actually, you're in my
So
class
awkward.
when your dad was.
No, I wasn't. I
You
never
were.
took sex ed from my own father. That would have been torture.
I totally remember you being in that class.
That's the way that you wanted to remember it to make it even more awkward for me. No, that was that never happened. I did health and guidance. I think it was Miss Mark. No, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I know it wasn't my father. I already had to have that conversation. The birds and the bees. That's the worst. But yeah, to know that your dad is teaching all of your peers about the birds and the bees pretty much encouraged me to cut school every day. That's what that did.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
It's
Uh,
so shame. Like, damn, really couldn't have taught any other class.
but you know what? Like, you just like, you came out of it with grace. I totally, you could have been totally damaged from that, but you're.
Well, I think I'm pretty damaged. I don't know if it's from that. Probably has something to do with it.
Oh, that's so funny. Um, so like I just wanted to kind of go into like this whole topic of culture because one, because of how, I felt about you like when we were in college together or like, during that time in Los Angeles, just I just remember feeling like like there's certain people that create this energy when they enter a room, or if you're in a event or some kind of party or something, and there's a very specific feeling you get, you know, in the space. I don't know, like to me, I think that's kind of what culture is, you just, but like I just want to find out like what do you think what is your definition of culture? Like how do you define it?
Yeah, you just kind of hit the nail on the head right there. When you walk into a place or a space, whether that's a workspace or a family space or friends, that feeling that you get just by the way people are being with each other is culture to me. Is like that kind of defines um, the basics of culture. And I see it as an expression of our values, right? And that's kind of what it is when we celebrate, when we um, have tough times, the way we handle problems, when we navigate difficult conversations. That's all that shows up as an expression of our values. So that's pretty much where culture begins to be. It's like the story that you tell yourself when you wake up in the morning, put your feet up on the floor, whether or not that story comes from your parents or you've trained yourself to be that way. But you bring that that's what you bring to the table. That's your contribution to culture.
Right. And I just look at this generation now, like the generation that my kids are in, like and it's so different from when we grew up, And I'm just like, cuz this whole idea, the whole phenomenon of culture, and it's like how do you learn that? Like, is it just natural, you know? And this whole digital era where, you know, kids are in school learning on the computer now, you know, like that's got to be different, you know, like how do they learn that specific way of creating culture, you know, and just and it's difficult, especially with their face in a device all the time, you know. And me
What's going to
too.
happen? That's the scary thing, and that's what we're seeing in America, right? It's going to happen. Culture is going to happen, whether or not we're intentional about it or not. So it really is about bringing intention to how you show up, to understand that we're all accountable for this space that we're living in, right? And
Right.
like, so good example, your kids, how do you handle, because all parents nowadays have different answers when I talk or observe. How do you handle their screen time, their digital time?
I
Is
don't
it a free
handle them.
pass?
Yeah.
They get it. And so if your son was at the dinner table and you're talking to him and then he starts playing Minecraft in the middle of your conversation about school, do you say anything or you just let him play? It's just like, whatever, just play Minecraft.
I actually, I- if we're actually sitting together and trying to have a conversation, I turn off the TV and, you know, the devices are down. But, you know, if I'm trying to distract them because I'm working, you know, like the
Yeah,
devices are just like, here you go, you know, like
it's
it's
gold.
terrible. It's
No, but
terrible.
it's a tool, and I've seen people use it effectively that way. Um, Sometimes it can be ineffective, but yeah, no, you just that's a great example though. When you're talking together and you're saying, "Don't turn off the TV," you know, that's a total example of culture, right? He's learning what your boundaries are, what your values are around your focused attention when it comes to family time or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But these
It,
kids are going to need more guidance, I think, because we never had to. We were lucky. Like the things that were pulling our attention away were not things that were trying to sell us stuff. They were like just stuff that was around our house. We didn't have this constant pull of attention away from what was going on. So I think for our generation, we're used to just making our own fun, right? Like making our own, uh, finding out ways to engage ourselves in the world. And I think the kids nowadays are going to have to do kind of the opposite. Is just filter out some of the engagement and realize like which one do I not pay attention to because this is not good for me, right?
right, right. And gosh, parents have to, we really have to be the ones that guide them on that because it'll be just almost impossible for them to just figure it out on their own, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But I wanted to ask you, like, what do you do for a living now? Like, you in the beginning said that, you know, it had a lot to do with your job and what you do today. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for a living?
Yeah, this is not something I ever thought I would be doing, but I am a patient experience manager for Hawaii Pacific Health. So we're a large healthcare organization in Hawaii, and my role is to kind of look after the best practice workflows or um, the, the the best tactics or strategies to forge stronger relationships with people. So there's a lot that I do that has a lot to do with coaching or communication training. Um, I talk a lot about values and culture at work because when I first kind of stepped foot into the job, I kind of approached it from a very linear perspective. And I was like, okay, if my job is to look after our patient experience scores, then I'm just going to go and look at who's not doing well and talk to them and tell them this is what you should be doing to get higher patient experience scores. But then I realized that none of that stuff is ever sustainable unless you have a good understanding of a culture that that person has to show up to every day and has to what they're up against essentially. Nobody can just pull out these tools that we give people and just apply them to the world around them without really understanding how the culture is going to impact the way they interface and the way they bring those tools and show up. So much more of my work, I say 50% of my work now is about creating a more positive work culture so that I can train more effective communication strategies and get folks to really understand or feel connected to the reason why they're in healthcare and the point of wanting to, communicate clearly with somebody. So easy in our day-to-day, yeah, to lose track of why we wanted to do this in the first place. And so it's easy to start checking boxes, and that's when we run into trouble, especially in patient experience when you're trying to like forge relationships with people, right?
Right. What is your biggest challenge? Like, because I mean, how many people are you training at a time? Like, is it a lot? I mean, give us an idea of like how much people we're dealing with here.
So it's usually not a huge group. I'd say the maximum would be like 15 to 20. And then I also do like as small as one-to-one. So it depends on the situation. But if I'm training like a batch of new hire employees that have this class that I kind of talk about the best practice behaviors and what culture, looks like at each PH, then it's about 20,
Okay.
anywhere between like 10 and 20. And then if I'm doing coaching with somebody who's struggling, it's more one-on-one stuff. The most challenging thing to me is some folks aren't ready, or some folks aren't really as self-aware as other folks, and so they're not ready for coaching. And so the conversation can't even get to that point where you're like, okay, let's talk about improvement, because they don't want to improve. They don't think that there's a problem. They don't like feedback, and they don't like the fact that someone's giving them feedback. And so I think the hardest part of the job is kind of meeting them where they're at, and then actually starting from like mindfulness and the importance of feedback. And it's incredible how many people don't appreciate feedback and still get defensive, even though they're like what, 10, 15, 20 years into their career, and not realizing that's an important free tool to make yourself a master of what you do.
Right. You know, a lot of it is just maturity, like I feel like when I turned 40, something switched in me. The level of maturity. I don't know if it's that number, or what it is, being a parent. I don't know, maybe all of it together. But that level of maturity is directly associated with self-awareness. Like the ability to be aware of your emotions, what emotions you're feeling. If you're not focused on learning that, I mean, I guess your physiological response is to just get defensive when people try to
Yeah,
point out your flaws. And I mean, to me, I think it's just a level of maturity. If people are not able to do that, to see it, they're just emotionally immature. Like it, you have to be aware of, your behaviors, how you're feeling in order to improve. But like you said, a lot of people don't think they need improvement. And that
that's
is,
that's that's definitely the biggest challenge. Yeah.
yeah,
And sometimes it is like working with somebody to the point where you have a talk and you say, maybe this is just not the right field, like maybe this isn't the right fit, maybe you know want to be on you want to help your staff or whoever you're coaching to feel like they're on the path that's right for them. And sometimes that means, yeah, maybe it's not the same path that we're on.
right.
That's definitely a hurdle.
It's a hurdle for sure. But I don't know, that's like something that I just love about maybe just even talking about it on this show, like just learning, people's when you're passionate about something, that you're working toward, it's so much easier to, you know, pinpoint, what all the the periods of growth that you know, you experience. Because when you have a goal and you're working toward that, you want to do whatever you can to achieve that goal. And if you're your most of the time we're our own enemies, the hurdles that we're coming across are our own. We're creating our own barriers, like, so I just feel like it's all part of growing up. You just have to you have to make a decision, on what you want in life. And it's hard because a lot of people don't even know what they want. They kind of
It's
just, yeah.
it is definitely, I think, attributed to kind of where you are in life, and I think you're right. Like a lot of it has to do with, if not the number 40, just the just the concept that you're in a place and you're ready to start learning more and listening more. Because it's really easy to like, well, when you're young, right? Like this is the way I was. As soon as you learn something, you just want to share it. And because I was modeling after like all the other educators. There's so many educators in my family. We love telling people what to do, right? But then you get to a point where you realize that if you want sustainable change, it's not about telling people what to do. It's about listening to where they're at. And then when you get to that point, you're like, oh shit, or oh shoot, I haven't really even been doing this for myself. And you start, looking for more um, for more pieces of knowledge, not just so that you can share it with other people, but so you can actually ingest it and actually bring some of those tools to your own life. So I find myself in the same position as you are now. Like I am I used to think the self-help section in the bookstore was like a bunch of quacks, and I just very cynical about the whole concept of um, the self-help section in a bookstore. But now that's like the first place I go to. I want to learn from thought leaders, business leaders, what made them successful. How can I stand on the shoulders of other people who have done the work and really apply that stuff to myself. I feel like I'm ready. I feel like I'm primed.
Right.
And I don't know if it's the age, like you said, or the maturity, like you said. But I definitely feel that kind of fire now to be like, okay, it's time to apply this stuff.
You know, I have a very specific story about self-help. uh, my sister Daphne, she gave me a book that really changed my life. It's that book called The Four Agreements by Don Ruiz. Don Miguel Ruiz or something. I think that's his name. I should know his name because that book changed my life.
Yeah,
But she gave me that book when I was going through some stuff, and I think I sold it on eBay. Like that was like my reaction to her giving me that book. Like I'm just like, stop trying to change me,
right.
like that total immature type of reaction to, a gift of a book that's supposed to help you better yourself, right? And then years later, she gave that book to me again. I don't know if she forgot that she gave it to me, but she gave it to me again for Christmas. But this time I read it, and I was just like, wow, it just opened my eyes, to a totally different way of thinking. And I just appreciate that. And I'm so glad she gave it to me again because I literally sold it on eBay the first time.
That was the four agreements. I gotta get that from you later.
Yeah, that it's amazing. It just kind of it's so simple, the concepts, like um it's just be honest. Like you have to be honest. You have to don't take anything personally, it's simple concepts like that. Like I
Love it.
but it's hard to implement stuff like that in your life, like don't take anything personally. Just think about that for a second. That's like the major thing that causes anger in life, right?
Totally. Especially when it's the people that you love the most. Right?
Exactly. And that is
Especially when it's the
something that
people
you
that you care
have
about.
complete control over. Nobody else has control over that but yourself. And that probably is the number one thing that really hit home for me from reading that book was don't take anything personally, because if you can do that, I mean, your level of happiness and peace is just, I mean, it
Yeah.
is night and day. And
Yeah.
nobody has control over that but yourself. It's
I
such
gotta
a
I gotta uh, get. I'm gonna check that out because I struggle with that still to this day a lot. Like at work, professionally, I think it's pretty easy for me to separate if I get professional feedback or criticism. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm game. Let's do this. I'm all about improving what's best for the outcome, right? But in my personal life, I struggle um, with not taking things personally. It is something that I've always struggled with. I know I've always struggled with it, and uh, yeah, so I'm gonna hit you up for that
Yeah, and
or agreements.
yes, and I think there's a fifth one out now, and I think it has a lot to do with listening, which you said is very important. Um, so when I was thinking about like this whole phenomenon of culture, uh, do you think that that is like a natural, that's a human, if it's part of humanity, like it's something natural that humans have to have um, as a
Yeah,
group of people, you know, like
yeah,
uh, I just think it's just it's interesting when I think about it, like the need that we have as humans to have culture,
yeah.
and it could be good or bad, just depending on the way it's set up. I watched this Netflix documentary on pop music. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's new. It just kind of came up, and they had this one episode just on festivals, music festivals, and the culture of music festivals. A really cool episode. But just, the fact that one person who had a vision, you know, could create this very specific peaceful culture with all these thousands of people in one space, and everyone's just happy and having a good time, listening to music. And then they have that one concert, the Woodstock, when they brought it back in the 1990s, that
Right.
was supposed to, you know, you know, kind of, imitate the way it was back
Yeah,
back in the day when it was all, oh, peace and love, but it ended up not being that way. I mean, people were lighting things on fire at that one. Like,
yeah.
it was
Well,
just like,
unfortunately, we were in the grunge phase at the time, right?
was that what it
I
was?
think. Well, yeah. I mean, one of the concerts I remember going to during that time was at Cool Low. Remember they used to have the big mallet, and they used to have those huge mosh pits. I remember Primus was there. They played "My Name Is Mud" and just hosed the whole audience down. So I could definitely see how or why Woodstock went sideways in the '90s for sure.
Oh, I was just thinking about, yeah,
That's
what
a
was,
really interesting point, though, Bev. Like music festivals are a fascinating microcosm for culture. I never thought of it that way. I got to check out that episode.
yeah. And it was just crazy how, like, the person who, I forget which festival it was, but it was just a guy who had a farm, and he just had this vision to do something huge with it, this all that land, instead of farming, and he
Wow.
thought of building this, and he started small, but just it's been going on for so long, and the culture has always been the same, just everyone's peaceful, like they don't have riots coming out, like at other kind of concerts that are more, I guess, money driven, when it's a bunch of people coming together listening to music, and they're there for a specific purpose of enjoying themselves and just, being with each other, that's a really cool culture to have. And the fact that that was envisioned by just one person, and made it happen, and it's been continuing on for so many years. I just think that's super cool. But it's just interesting to me that humans, and especially after the pandemic when everyone was isolated, how crazy did that make people? Because human nature is just, we have this culture to want to come together. I think
And
in the
connect,
end, yeah, in the end, everyone
right?
wants to connect, and they want to be with each other. They want to work together. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but like, I think that's part of human nature. We want that.
there's a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting research around what we've done to adapt digitally in the face of the pandemic, just in terms of filling that gap. I was telling you about Clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
The whole social audio movement. There's a whole subculture that most, like a lot of people just don't know is out there in the social audio space where people are networking and connecting, and making contacts, sharing ideas on a global level in the way that the internet, when it first kind of exploded in the 90s, in the way that it was like idealized to be. So I think that there's going to be a lot of technologies and innovative ideas for how to connect and still create that culture, even in spaces or cases where we can't physically be there. I just read that Facebook is kind of doubling down on this concept of a metaverse, or like an augmented reality universe. Essentially, it will be like the internet overlaid with what's in real life. So you would be wearing these glasses. Kind of remember when Google Glass came out and it was like 20 years too early. Everybody looked like super nerds for being into it. That would be me, basically. The only person that I know that knows what Google Glass is. No, but it was like this augmented reality glass that Google made, maybe like I think maybe 15 years ago. It projected it had a little projector in the side of it so that you could see what was being projected, but nobody else could. And so you could see directions, like turn by turn directions, or if you Googled like, oh, how do I get to this place? It would literally show you in the real world when you turn your head where it was, so you could start walking in that direction. And so that's kind of the idea of the metaverse. Facebook is saying that they're going to start building that out. And I know a lot of other companies, when you watch the way your kids play Fortnite, Roblox, or Minecraft, they're all kind of building out their own version of the metaverse. And that's eventually where I think a lot of folks are going to start connecting in the future. The use case examples for how that can bring people together, make people at least feel like they're closer, would be basically me sitting next to you. Like you would, in your glasses, see me sitting next to you or across from you at the table versus us staring at this 2D screen together. But yeah, there's the possibilities for culture building with what's coming down, with what's going to be evolving in terms of technology is super exciting to me too.
It's
You
gonna
know,
be like I was thinking Spaceballs, but I guess that's Star Wars, right?
I
How
love the fact, I love the fact that your hologram references Spaceballs instead of Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of I mean, that's the movie I probably saw first is Spaceballs. Is it with
You
before
know,
Star Wars.
you make me want to watch that movie. Just just saying Spaceballs makes me laugh.
Ludicrous
Yeah,
speed,
that movie is
go!
so good. That movie.
Yeah,
Let's just turn this podcast into a Spaceballs
I
commercial.
know. But I just, yeah, the hologram thing, that's neat. That needs to happen. That would be amazing.
Right? Like think about it for consulting, for just like co-working spaces. You could like roll over, like how when we're in the office, the nice thing about being in the office is you roll your chair over, you say something snarky to your coworker, make them laugh, and then you go back to work. You can't do that when you're working remotely, but you will be able to soon.
That's gonna be crazy. I can't even envision it. Like my mind doesn't even go that far and in technology yet.
I've been dreaming about this since I was like in the eighth grade. Um, that was a super, because again, I was part of the nerdy kids.
That's
Um,
funny.
you were mentioning like, is it human instinct? When you were talking about the festival, the music festivals. I was thinking about how much our experience at Kula impacted the way or the direction that I ended up in terms of my work. But
Oh, okay. Let's just tell the audience because they don't know us. We're just talking to each
Right.
other because we know each other forever. But Kualoa, 1998, which was the best summer of my entire life, by the way, till this day. Still the best
Nice.
summer of my whole freaking life.
Virtual high five that one.
Yeah. But we worked summer at the summer camp at Kualoa Beach, which is that beach right across the street from where they filmed Jurassic Park and all that kind of stuff with the big Kola mountain range in the background. But we worked the summer there where they would have 3 days weekend camps with all kids from third grade through sixth grade would come. And then we were the camp counselors that took care of them for those 3 days of the weekend. Oh my gosh, that was like the most fun experience I ever experienced in my whole life. And
So
I just
good.
find it hilarious, Bryce, that when we were working together, we were, the same level. We're just camp counselors together. But you became like the boss of that whole organization, right? At some point. Like,
Not I wouldn't say the boss of the Lord. I became a park director, or a rec specialist actually after a while, who was in charge of running the summer camp. But um, the the funny thing is, I just made the connection just now. That was the direct summer right after I spent the whole year with you in LA. So in essence, I convinced you to work with me over the summer, and we kind of made that magic last for a little bit longer.
yes, it was so amazing. That was such an amazing summer. And I learned a lot, like just on how to connect with people and just having that experience of y- being that person that has to be taking care of all these young people. And it was just such a great experience. I Do they still have that program there?
They do. They're doing day camps now, obviously, because COVID and
Yeah.
just changes in the budget for Parks and Rec. But from what I understand, they're still doing kind of traveling day camps where they go out to the summer fun parks and they have the staff kind of run through some of the same activities we used to do with the kids. It's not the same as going out there and getting to spend the night. But that
Yeah.
whole experience to me, like because I was there for so long, I really was drawn into the values. Like when that first summer that I was a camp counselor, um, you know, my boss, Chris Blake, and then we had the boss's boss, which is Pat Rath and Fujihara. They really instilled a very strong sense of place and purpose for what we were doing there. And they told that through the legends that they taught us. They told that through the activities that we did, like everything down to how we got our food. Like remember how we used to make the kids sing for food? Like it was all embedded. This idea of like bringing people together, having fun, and really getting the best out of kids was embedded into every activity that we did. And I thought that was so awesome that I just gravitated right towards that. I drank the Kool-Aid and was all in for almost, I want to say almost 10 years. Um,
Wow.
not as a counselor for 10 years, but I was a counselor for at least 5 or 6 of those years. But that, seeing the formation of new cultures every summer. So every summer you're getting a fresh batch of college kids, right? Some from that were there from before, but a new, like fresh blood being pulled into this little micro community, and then seeing how the power dynamics and the communication dynamics formed and forged and got stronger over the course of the summer, and seeing that happen over and over really gave me kind of a strong sense of like, well, this is how you build a good team. This is how you build a bad team. This is how you know, lead responsibly, and this is how you lead maybe not so responsibly, participating in all of those examples. But yeah, it taught me so much about what I understand today about building teams, building trust, basically building a space where there's enough trust and safety to do whatever your purpose or your mission is, and that's essentially that most of that came from Pula. And so I'm
Wow.
stoked that I'm stoked that that's something that we experienced together.
Yes, yes. I will never forget that summer. I only did it for one summer and it really impacted my life, for the long haul. So okay, now we can go into, like, you were talking about what Kualoa, how it led into what you're doing today.
Yeah, so I mean, when I say led, I mean this is in retrospect. I realized I learned these skills, but at the time I was still lost. Like I was bouncing around from idea to idea. I was always kind of a dreamer. I still am, right? Obviously, you can see how my brain works, and um, I always had a hard time focusing on what it is that I want. It was really easy for me to follow what somebody else wanted to do. It was really hard for me to really cut out all the other noise in my head because I have so much like ideas bouncing around in there and really focusing on what do I really want to do, right? So I kind of just let the wind take me where it would, and I learned that way for a really long time. I ended up going back to school for my master's degree, and then graduated. Um, and the sole reason for that was I realized that Kulo wasn't, or the city and county, I should say, wasn't a place where I was going to be able to excel as a creative person, just because of the nature of a government job. They kind of want you to stay in your lane, and you don't they don't really want you to change things up all that much. It's like what did we budget for last year is what you get to do this year, and that's it, right? Um, which I totally get, but that just wasn't my bag. So went back for an MBA thinking I'm going to make a ton of money. I'm going to be able to have the freedom to do these creative things that I want to do, like start a graphic design company or whatever. And I ended up graduating in 2008, and that was the recession. That was when Hawaii got hit really hard. And at the time, I was working at Tihati Productions as a graphic designer. You know Tihati, like,
Mm-mm.
the family. So they're really well known for um, entertainment in Waikiki, like setting up or um, hosting events. They do, if you see like Polynesian dancing in commercials or movies, a lot of the times it's them and their crew that is doing that. And so I was like their in-house graphic designer, putting myself through school, and then I got laid off. I think it was like the same month that I graduated with my master's.
Oh,
And
crazy.
so I know, and it was like that was a dark time because I was not only starting to incur like these phone calls from the student loan company saying it's time to pay up, right? Pay up on your debt. I didn't have a job, like a real legit job. I was working, I think, 3 part-time coffee shop jobs. I collected unemployment for the first time in my life, I think, for about 3 months until I got that third coffee shop job that kind of knocked me out of the eligibility to continue to collect. Um, but I ended up I had a friend, luckily for me, I had a friend who was working in hotels, and he told me, just come over here and work the front desk. Like, suck it up, suck up your pride, come over here, work the front desk. And I did. I mean, I was like, so at least somebody's going to give me a job, right? Because I was knocking on doors, I was calling everywhere. Nobody was going to hire somebody who was advertising an MBA with zero business experience um, in a economic climate where everyone was getting laid off, right? So I was lucky to get that job, and I told him and everybody that was around me at that job, like, just teach me everything, because what else am I here for? I'm not here for the hourly wage at this point. So because I was still having to work those extra coffee shop jobs, so I just learned as much as I could. They made me the guest service supervisor. They made me the night auditor. Like, I jumped around and tried to learn as many positions as I could. And it was at that time where um, the mobile internet at least was really starting to blow up, and LinkedIn became a thing. And I remember one night on the overnight shift, realizing that they created this website for virtual resumes, essentially. where your resume can live forever, like Facebook, that they came up with this thing. And I remember filling out my profile on the overnight shift at the Island Colony Hotel, thinking that maybe someone would see that. And then like a month later, I checked my inbox because that's how it was, right? We weren't as connected as we are now. Whereas
Right.
like you check it every day. Like a month later, I logged into my LinkedIn, I checked my inbox, and there was a message from Hawaii Pacific Health saying, you know, we are interested in talking to you. We want to bring hospitality back to the hospitals. And I thought, like, this is a scam, this is a mistake. I never heard of HPH before that. So I thought it was like kind of like a scam company. I wasn't sure what was happening. But I called anyway. I got an interview. You know, at the end of the interview, I just remember thinking, like, I don't know what a NICU is. I don't know what a PICU is. Like, this is a way out of my league. But lo and behold, they offered me the position. And I was in a position in my life where it was like super scary to think about jumping into healthcare because I had no expertise, I had no knowledge of that at all. It would have been like starting fresh, but the pay was almost double what I was currently making. So I just jumped in and never looked back.
Yeah.
And I ran that admissions department because they were hiring, that's what they're hiring for, an admissions supervisor. I ran that admissions department like I ran our summer camps. Like I made everything into a game. Everything was about like everything was about having fun and really understanding that there is most of the job that we're hired to do we don't really like, but doesn't mean we have to hate it. You know, so trying to find engagement in the things that weren't so engaging. And we did a lot of work around patient experience and improving the patient experience. So when they opened up that patient experience position, they tapped me on the shoulder and pulled me up to the what do you call that? The system level. So not just Kapilani, but with Pacific Health, and that's when I started doing patient experience for the clinics.
Man, the person who hit you up on LinkedIn, I mean, he did his job.
She,
She
she,
she
yeah,
did her job
she did.
because man, she picked the right person for the job. Like I'm sure she probably gives herself a lot of credit for finding you because
I give them credit because they were using LinkedIn at a time where that was still like brand spanking new. This was before it was a thing, you know?
yeah, implementing the innovative the innovative
Yeah.
that's so cool. And I remember like when I had my first kid, that's when I bumped into you randomly at Kapiolani Hospital. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
was like totally going the wrong place and you kind of led me in the right place. Oh my gosh. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, that was just prior to that, I didn't see you for the longest time. And it was such a nice surprise. And I was just like, wow, you're really in your element here.
I was. Yep. I mean, I still am.
Yeah.
But that's the hardest part about working in a hospital, especially in at Kapiolani, because everybody there's like 50% of the mothers are going to give birth at Kapiolani. So I see so many classmates and stuff, but HIPAA, right? You can't say, oh, you know who I saw at the hospital, but
Yeah.
like you just can't talk about it. So a lot of those memories when I run into people, they're very compartmentalized, and I don't even remember it. I don't remember them at all until the person brings it up. I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. But I've been trained so much to just kind of shut that away and not talk about it. When I see people on campus. But yeah, for sure, I remember bumping into you that day.
Yeah. But yeah, that was definitely an experience. But that's so cool that how you came into this, this what your career now. Just it's just funny how life leads you, you know? And it's part of life. And you know what? Like when you're lost and you're finally open, that's when you start noticing the opportunities and, like you're open to receiving like that. I love how you said that when you got that job at the hotel, how you're just like, you know what? not here for the pay. I'm just want to learn as much as I can. You know, like when you have that mentality, you have nothing to do but excel in whatever
Yeah,
you
you have
do.
nothing. Well, I had nothing to lose, right? When you have
Right,
nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. I was
right.
drinking so much beer and like just wallowing in depression every day, just, asking myself, why me? I see my friends being successful, my siblings, and when you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. You just gotta suck it up, buttercup, right?
Yep,
That's what they
yep.
say.
So before we end this episode, I just want to ask you what next? Like, do you have any passion projects that you're working on that you're working on outside of your 9 to 5? You know, like what are you working on? Because you're a very creative person too. You know, like what else are you doing that's
Got
adding
a
to your
couple
happiness?
I've got a couple side hustles. I think you have to have a side hustle here in Hawaii. So I do with my brother and a nurse practitioner and his wife. Uh, we're running a care home. It's a small operation, like a 5 bedroom here. It's staffed 24/7 with caregivers. So that's kind of a side project, and that's also like kind of scratches the itch of culture building and building community, fostering like an awesome place to just be, and it also is additional income, which is very helpful, especially here in Hawaii. And then Clubhouse, I was telling you, I'm getting super deep into Clubhouse, and they just opened it up to the public. So if you're not on Clubhouse, check us out. I host a show every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. Um, really dedicated to the patient experience and talking about which we love to talk to patients and physicians, providers, anybody about their experiences, their stories of healthcare. And the idea is just to bring people together, bring a community together where administrators and providers can learn from the voice of the patient, and at the same time, patients can learn a little bit of perspective behind why the system seems so bad and jumbled up from the operations standpoint. But um, that's been kind of big on my list. And then the last thing is trying to get back into art. I take these long breaks where I'm not really expressing myself creatively in like the visual arts as much, but I'm trying to get back into that. It's been something that's been it's been an itch that I've been wanting to scratch for a while. So I'm kind of finally giving myself some time to double down on that.
Yeah. You know, on Clubhouse, can anybody participate in the conversation or do they have to be invited to speak?
It's super cool. So it's basically like all these internet chat rooms, right? Just think of internet chat rooms, but you don't get a video. It's only your profile picture. So all you see are people's heads, people's faces when you enter the room. And your head lights up if you talk. And you can only talk if you're on stage. So when you enter a room, you're automatically in the audience. You don't have to talk. There's no pressure to engage, which is what I like about it, because you can actually literally just go in there, listen and learn, which is probably 80% of what I end up doing in Clubhouse is just listening to these really interesting conversations that I had no idea I would be interested in, and just kind of learning what industry insiders are talking about in relation to that. And then there's if you do want to contribute to the conversation, the only thing the audience member can do is there's a little button to raise your hand.
Okay.
And if they pull you on stage because you raised your hand, then you get a microphone button and you can
I see.
talk and participate in the conversation. It's really cool the way they built it. Um, there's a bunch of Hawaii. If there's anybody from Hawaii on listening, there's a bunch of Hawaii entrepreneurs that get together Thursday nights to have conversation, and I think they're trying to build the community out there too. Um, yeah, there's definitely lots of opportunities. I like to look at Clubhouse as the associations of the future. We don't have the kind of time I think the previous generations did to be sitting on boards and joining associations like they used to. We just, especially if you live in Hawaii, like I said, everybody's got one or two extra side hustles. So Clubhouse is kind of a nice way to squeeze that community building, culture building, and learning about your industry into little pockets where you can afford to give your attention.
Right. And as far as your art, you did do the illustrations for a children's book. Um,
Did.
I thought
Yeah.
that was so cool, Bryce. Like, and that's not your only a book that you've done illustrations for, right? Didn't you do art
Here
for a
and there.
cover?
Yeah, here and there, like people will ask, like one of my friends, Jeff, he was editor for Hawaii Review for a while, so I got to do a couple covers there. Um, I did cover art for like one or two other books, and then did the children's book. But the children's book was definitely my most fun project because it was my cousin who wrote the book, and it was about my niece, so I really had kind of like a more intimate relationship with the content, and that was fun. That was
Yeah.
definitely a fun project to like think about what kids want to see.
Hmm. And you're definitely on, like, I don't know, you, even though, we're all grown up now, you still have that childlike eyes, you can still see through a child's eyes. And I've always loved that about you.
Thank you. What about you, Bev? I know creatively, you've always, had ways to express yourself. And are you still, jamming on a regular basis?
I don't spend enough time on it, but yes, it's not so much live like how I used to. I used to do the whole coffee shop playing guitar thing. I don't have time to do that a whole lot, but which is I kind of love that you can film yourself like off of your phone. Whoops. Because that's the way to do it now. Like if I want
Yeah,
to learn a song, I just practice and then I film myself, and at least that way I can remember what I did. Like that I can watch it again and I can share it on YouTube if I want to or Facebook. So I do play, but it's literally only for that kind of audience, a virtual audience, and I don't really put myself out there very much, but it gives me an excuse to still practice. And I'm starting to learn how to play the bass a little bit and electric guitar, so that's fun. Learn how to do garage band a little bit, and editing videos so you can collaborate with other people is probably what I like to do the most. And and I usually do it with my sister and a couple of friends in LA. So we can be all over the country and we can create a video and put it together and sing together,
that's
which,
awesome.
yeah, I love that. I love that it's so easy now for us to
Do
do
you
with
and your
technology.
sisters do that a lot? Do you guys collaborate a lot virtually on music?
Not a lot, but we do. Yeah, that's something that, we have to plan more to do it more regularly because it always feels good after we do something like that.
That's so
So
cool.
musically, yes, that way. Artistically, painting, the last time I painted was during the 2 months of quarantine. I had so much
Mm,
time on my hands. I was very artistic during that time. And I have all kinds of ideas that I want to do. It's just a matter of, you know, it's always hard to schedule that time of being creative because once you get in the zone, you don't want to get up.
yeah,
And then all of a
time
sudden
just
you're like, ugh,
disappears. Yeah,
it's hard. You have to schedule that time, to be creative. But once you're in the zone of being creative, you don't want to get up. And next thing you know, you're like, oh, I was supposed to do this and that. And you didn't do any of it.
I know. That's the hardest part. That's the part I love is getting in that flow, but then that's the hardest part is you lose so much time because you're like, oh my gosh, it's 1 in the morning.
Yeah,
What am I
exactly.
doing?
Or my
Yeah.
kids are like, I'm hungry, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't feed them for like hours. Now, if anything that my kids learned during the pandemic, the quarantine, it was life skills. Like they learned how to cook, they learned how to use the microwave, they learned how to
That's awesome.
vacuum, use the dishwasher. I taught them all of that because I'm a busy person, I do a lot. So they're
There you go.
at their age that they can handle a lot on their own. They try to milk it, but I was like, you know what to do.
Leveled up your kids during quarantine. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. But anyways, this is a good place to end the interview. I really, really appreciate you, Bryce, for coming on the show. Like
Thanks for
you are
having me.
just amazing, and definitely want to collaborate with you more on whether it's on Clubhouse or
I got a bunch
music.
of ideas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. We're gonna have to do something because I definitely want an excuse to interact with you more regularly on a regular
Yes.
basis.
Yes.
So thank you
Loved
so
it.
much, Bryce. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for giving me the chance to tell my story. I am very grateful. Thank you, Bev.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for coming and visiting us on Dark Horse Matters. If you like this episode, please don't forget to like it and share it with your friends, because you never know. Like when you watch this, you hear people's stories. Like sometimes it could just be that one person that opens your eyes to something that you never saw in yourself before. And if it motivates you to take action and do something about going after something you're passionate about, I mean, it could really change your life forever. So thanks again. And, I look forward to seeing you next week. Everybody be passionate.